This quote from Leslie King describes the current system by which people acquire food in the United States. It's not a system that places emphasis on nutrition or sustainability, and recently the food industry in this country has come under a lot of pressure from activists calling for change. Changing such a system, however, isn't easy, and food production and consumption in the U.S. and on a global scale is an extremely complex issue. This project will address several key components of the issue, including the locavore movement, the rise of the organic food industry, factory farming, and the global food crisis. Perhaps it's best to start at the heart of the issue. With growing concerns about climate change and the environment, people have started to look at many things in new lights. Transportation, energy, fuel, and even now food are being looked at differently. In the United States, people are beginning to recognize the fact that the way we feed ourselves can have profound effects on not just our bodies, but the environment in which we live as well. The seemingly hidden costs of the industrialization of food are being realized. One of the reasons for this industrialization of food is the fact that there are simply more people in the world. According to Lester Brown in his book Plan B 4.0, within 2 decades we will need to feed 8 billion people worldwide. In his book, Brown says that growing world food insecurity is ushering in a new geopolitics of food scarcity, one where competition for land and water resources is crossing national boundaries. The risk is that this will increase hunger and political instability, leading to even more failing states. Another contributing factor to this is the fact that we're using much of our food for fuel in the form of grain-based ethanol, which contributes to the scarcity of grain that Brown refers to. Another reason for the grain scarcity is because of the fact that much of it goes to protein production. That is, we use it to feed the animals we eat. According to Brown, world meat consumption has increased from 44 million tons in 1950 to 260 million tons in 2007, more than doubling animal consumption per person from 17 kilograms to 39 kilograms. This is significant because as we've craved more meat, we have had to use more grain to feed that meat. And in doing so, we've created an incredibly inefficient system. Brown notes that it takes an average of 7 kilograms of grain to produce 1 kilogram of cattle in live weight, and 3 kilograms to produce 1 kilogram of pork. This figure becomes more significant when you think about the fact that in the United States, our food system has become industrialized and our demand for meat so high that we have turned to factory farming in order to keep up with the demand. The easiest way for fast food restaurants and grocery stores to keep up with the high demand for meat is to buy it as cheap as possible in order to get more of it for the money. It is our own demand for hamburgers, ribs, chicken legs, and pulled pork sandwiches that has created this system of factory farming and food that is industrially produced rather than grown. Meat is not the only food item that is now produced rather than raised or grown, however. American grocery stores today are filled with tens of thousands of items that simply didn't exist when our grandparents were young. Food is being produced rather than grown, and processed foods are available in abundance. Just walking down the aisles of a grocery store can almost overwhelm a consumer with the amount of choice that they have. Lately, pop culture has given us a look into the issues regarding the food industry, with films like King Corn, Fast Food Nation, and Food Inc., and books like The Omnivore's Dilemma. These films and books point out many of the different issues with the food industry in the U.S. They tell us about the adverse health effects, about environmental costs, and offer plenty of solutions for consumers who are, to quote Food Inc., hungry for change. One thing that all of these movies advocate is the purchase and consumption of organic produce and other food. Organic food is regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and is the only truly organic if it has been USDA approved. The USDA regulates what can and can't be considered organic by making sure that the product adheres to cultural, biological, and mechanical practices that foster cycling of resources, promote ecological balance, and conserve biodiversity. Organic foods are produced without the use of synthetic pesticides or hormones and contain no preservatives, additives, or really any other substances that aren't natural. According to Leslie King, it is an $11 billion industry. Now, many people see organic food as the solution to environmental and health problems that we currently face. For instance, the average conventionally produced apple contains nearly 30 pesticides even after it's washed. And cattle and poultry are often force-fed tons of antibiotics and hormones that can make their way into our bodies. These reasons contribute to the fact that, as Brown points out, the number of organic farms have jumped from 12,000 in 2002 to 18,200 in 2007. According to the Huffington Post, President Obama's own cancer panel recently told the president that we should choose basically only foods that are grown without pesticides or chemical fertilizers because of the increased risk of cancer that comes from doing otherwise. While it may seem like a no-brainer to some, organic food does in fact have its downsides. One issue that many people have with organic food is the price. The price of organic food is significantly higher than regular food. Organic milk can be as much as $5 a gallon, which is a lot more than people are willing to pay for a gallon of milk. On top of that, Reuters reported in 2009 that a study confirmed that organic food had no nutritional value whatsoever over conventionally grown food. Also, organic food can still have a hefty environmental cost, since it can still travel thousands of miles to reach its final destination, consuming all sorts of fuel and expending a lot of energy along the way. On top of that, there's some controversy surrounding labeling, as only foods labeled USDA organic are truly organic, and foods labeled all natural aren't really regulated at all. Another thing these movies advocate is joining the local food movement, or becoming a locavore. The local food movement is a collaborative effort to build more locally based, self-reliant food economies, one in which sustainable food production, processing, distribution, and consumption is integrated to enhance the economic, environmental, and social health of a particular place. By eating locally grown produce and even locally raised meat and dairy products, people attempt to keep the money in the local economy and know where their food comes from. The growth and acceptance of the local food movement in the U.S. can be seen everywhere. According to Lester Brown, the number of farmers markets tripled from 1994 to 2009, and urban and community gardens are also on the rise. Universities have started gardens, and even the White House now has a vegetable garden. Environmental benefits here are clear, as while conventional produce can travel sometimes up to 1,500 miles to reach its destination, locally grown produce travels an average of 56 miles to reach its final destination. Other advantages include the community aspect that comes from purchasing locally grown food, and the fact that people can actually know where their food comes from. Like organic food, though, there's a flip side to locally produced food. While many people tout it as a promising solution to solving many of the country's food problems, others have problems with it. The Chicago Tribune reports that being a locavore can be seen as elitist, and it's also more expensive than buying at a grocery store. The Tribune also points out many question the efficiency of a local food economy, arguing that local food won't be able to meet the demands of the world population. On top of that, as Michael Pollan points out in his book The Omnivore's Dilemma, local doesn't necessarily mean sustainable or pesticide and chemical free. Local food also isn't nearly as convenient as buying pre-cooked and processed foods from the grocery store. As the food industry has become a part of the mainstream culture through the help of recent documentaries and books that I previously mentioned, the complexities surrounding the food industry and proposed solutions to its current problems have also become apparent. Derek Jensen might argue that one reason we've allowed our food system to become industrialized and allowed things like chemicals, hormones, and pesticides into what we eat is because of our ability to compartmentalize things. Our thoughts go into one box and our emotions into another, which gives us the ability to rationalize things like eating harmful and unhealthy food that comes from factory farms and chemical-ridden soil. While it may seem like buying locally grown or organic food are the solutions to current issues facing the food industry, analysis shows that these issues are far more complex and probably only a part of the solution.